This transmission is designated for the Supreme Council's eyes only. Security clearance. Omega Red. The holographic message flickered to life in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, casting an eerie blue glow across the faces of the assembled alien representatives. The usual chatter and diplomatic pleasantries died instantly as the desperate voice of Ambassador Chen filled the room. They warned us. Earth's representatives warned us repeatedly, but we didn't listen. We thought we knew better. After all, what could one primitive species possibly do against the combined might of the Galactic Council? The recording showed the ambassador's hands trembling as he wiped sweat from his brow. Behind him, emergency lights pulsed and distant alarms wailed. When we sanctioned the mining operations on their moon without their consent, they protested through official channels. When we established colonies on Mars, ignoring their claims to their solar system, they sent diplomatic warnings, but we saw them as nothing more than children throwing tantrums. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, remembering how they had laughed off Earth's threats of retaliation. Humans were so far behind in technological advancement. What could they possibly do? The humans have a saying, Ambassador Chen continued, his voice growing hoarse. Necessity is the mother of invention. We gravely underestimated their capacity for innovation when backed into a corner. In just 3 years, they reversed engineered technology that took other species centuries to develop. The hologram stuttered, showing scenes of Earth's orbital defense platforms emerging from cleverly concealed lunar bases. The tiny blue planet had transformed into a bristling fortress, while the Council had dismissed their activities as mere posturing. But it wasn't their weapons that brought us to our knees. The ambassador's voice cracked. It was their understanding of something we had overlooked for millennia. The quantum communication network that connects all advanced spacecraft. They didn't just hack it, they rewrote its fundamental principles. The recording showed the chaos that followed. Entire fleets of council ships suddenly locked in safe mode, their crews helpless as Earth's forces systematically disabled their weapons and propulsion systems. Not a single shot fired, not a single life lost, yet the most powerful military force in the galaxy had been rendered impotent. We're sending this message from the Lunar Embassy because Earth has graciously allowed us to maintain one diplomatic outpost. They want the Council to understand something fundamental about their species. The ambassador leaned closer to the camera, his eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and admiration. Humans don't just adapt to survive, they thrive on challenges. Each obstacle we placed in their path didn't break them. It made them stronger, more innovative, more determined. Static began to interfere with the transmission. Before the message cut out, Ambassador Chen delivered his final warning. The humans are willing to negotiate new terms for peaceful coexistence, but make no mistake, they're negotiating from a position of strength. They've demonstrated they can shut down our entire civilization without firing a single shot. And they're suggesting that what they've shown us so far is just the beginning of what they're capable of. The hologram fizzled out, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The Supreme Chancellor slowly rose from their seat, mandibles clicking in agitation. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a force they couldn't simply overwhelm or ignore. As they prepared to vote on their response to Earth's demands, one question hung heavy in the air. Had they created their own worst nightmare by pushing humanity too far? The council chambers erupted into chaos as delegates from 1,000 worlds talked over each other, their translator units struggling to keep up with the cascade of different languages and dialects. The Supreme Chancellor's crystalline gavel struck 3 times, its resonant tone cutting through the din. Order. We will have order. The Chancellor's auxiliary breathing tentacles quivered with barely contained anxiety. We must approach this situation with the wisdom that has guided our civilization for millennia. A harsh laugh cut through the renewed silence. All eyes turned to Representative Cax of the Centaurian Alliance, his scaled skin shifting colors with his emotions. Wisdom? It was our arrogance that brought us here. I warned this council 5 years ago. The humans' historical records showed a species that thrived on adversity. Every time they faced extinction, they emerged stronger. The holographic displays activated again, showing footage from Earth's past. Images of humans recovering from natural disasters, rebuilding cities from ruins, and overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds played in rapid succession. Look at their pattern, Cax continued, pointing at the displays. Their first crude rockets were built during a global war. Their space station was constructed while their planet was divided by political tensions. They reached their moon while barely understanding the physics involved. And now, he gestured to the latest footage of Earth's defense grid. Now we've given them the ultimate motivation to surpass themselves. The Council's chief intelligence officer stepped forward, her crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. We've analyzed their quantum network modifications. The elegance of their solution is disturbing. They didn't just hack our systems. They fundamentally understood them better than we do. They found patterns we never knew existed. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The intelligence officer continued. Their message is clear. They could have destroyed us, but they chose not to. The question is, why? The chamber's main screen activated, displaying a new transmission, the face that appeared belonged to Earth's newly appointed Global Defense Director. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes held an intensity that made several council members flinch. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice steady and clear. We understand your confusion. You're wondering why we haven't pressed our advantage, why we haven't demanded your unconditional surrender. The answer is simple. That's not who we are. The director paused, allowing her words to sink in. Humanity has learned hard lessons about the price of conquest and dominion. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to subjugate other species. We simply want what we've always wanted, the right to determine our own destiny. The footage showed Earth's orbital platforms reconfiguring themselves, transforming from weapons into what appeared to be massive research stations. What you're seeing is our vision for the future. We're willing to share our innovations, to collaborate as equals. But first, we need acknowledgement of our sovereignty and guarantees that no external power will ever again attempt to control Earth's development. As the director's words echoed through the chamber, the Supreme Chancellor noticed something that sent chills through their central nervous system. The transmission was coming through a completely new type of quantum channel, one that their best experts couldn't even begin to understand. Just how far ahead had humanity already gotten? And more importantly, what other surprises did they have waiting in reserve if the Council made the wrong choice? The Supreme Chancellor's decision was interrupted by urgent alerts flashing across the chamber's neural interfaces. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Earth's influence had spread far beyond their initial assumptions. Impossible, breathed the Chief Intelligence Officer, her crystalline form clouding with stress patterns. They've already established quantum communication links with 17 previously unknown civilizations beyond our borders. Civilizations we never even knew existed. The implications hit the Council like a gravitational wave. Humanity hadn't just defended themselves. They'd been quietly building alliances with species that had deliberately stayed hidden from the Galactic Council's influence. Species that had their own reasons to fear the Council's expansion. The director's hologram reappeared, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from these hidden civilizations, some humanoid, others completely alien to the Council's experience. You see, she said, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. While you were busy underestimating us, we were learning that we weren't the only ones who'd faced your particular brand of diplomacy. Tactical displays across the chamber updated in real time, revealing quantum communication networks spanning vast regions of previously empty space. The Council's supposed dominion over the galaxy had been an illusion. They'd been surrounded all along by civilizations that had chosen isolation over submission. Your technology was impressive, the director continued, but your greatest weakness was believing it made you superior. While you were marveling at your own achievements, we were learning, adapting, and most importantly, listening. These civilizations didn't need our protection, but they recognized in us a kindred spirit, the unwillingness to bow to tyranny. The Supreme Chancellor rose slowly, their auxiliary limbs trembling not with fear now, but with the weight of realization. The Council hadn't just failed to subjugate Earth. They had accidentally triggered the creation of an alternative galactic alliance, one built on mutual respect rather than dominance. Perhaps most interesting, The director's voice took on an edge of steel, is what we discovered when we truly began exploring the quantum realm. Would you like to know what we found in those layers of reality your scientists deemed impossible to access? The chamber's lights flickered as if in response to her words. Several council members instinctively looked up, suddenly unsure of the very reality surrounding them. The quantum network that had been the backbone of their civilization for millennia. Just how deep did humanity's understanding of it really go? The director's hologram smiled, but it wasn't a smile of triumph. It was an invitation. We stand at a crossroads. The next few moments will determine whether today marks the beginning of a war that nobody wants, or the dawn of a new era of genuine cooperation. The choice, honored members of the council, is yours. As if to emphasize her point, quantum distortions rippled through the chamber's space-time fabric, a demonstration of capabilities that the council's finest scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. The message was clear. Humanity's mastery of reality itself had evolved beyond anything the council had imagined possible. The Supreme Chancellor looked around at their fellow council members, seeing in their faces the same realization. They weren't just voting on how to respond to Earth. They were deciding the very future of galactic civilization itself. As the council members prepared to cast their votes, a new alert screamed through their neural networks. The chief intelligence officer's crystalline form shattered and reformed in shock, a sign of extreme distress among her species. We're detecting massive quantum disturbances throughout the galaxy. Something is emerging. The chamber's holographic displays filled with images from across known space. Massive structures were appearing in supposedly empty regions, shimmering into existence like ghosts becoming solid. They were clearly artificial, yet they bore architectural signatures that matched none of the known species, not even Earth's new allies. The director's expression changed, showing genuine surprise for the first time. "Those aren't ours," she said, her voice tight with concern. Behind her, the representatives of the hidden civilizations were conferring urgently among themselves. "These structures," the Supreme Chancellor's voice wavered. "They're old, older than the Council itself. The quantum dating systems were going haywire, trying to process timestamps that stretched back millions of years. They're some kind of automated defense network, triggered by the quantum ripples we created," the director finished, realization dawning on her face. "Our experiments in the quantum realm. They didn't just access new layers of reality. They woke something up." The ancient structures were now fully materialized, forming a vast geometric pattern across the galaxy. Data streams began pouring through the quantum network, but in a code so complex and alien that even Earth's advanced systems couldn't decipher it. "We're receiving a transmission," announced the chief intelligence officer. It's being broadcast on quantum frequencies we didn't even know existed. The translation matrix is struggling, but..." The chamber's lights dimmed as a new presence made itself known. The holographic projectors struggled to render it, a shifting, multidimensional form that seemed to exist in several planes of reality simultaneously. When it spoke, its words bypassed the translation systems entirely, appearing directly in the minds of all present. "The children have finally learned to reach beyond the veil," the presence communicated. "But in your haste to outmaneuver each other, you have drawn the attention of those who set the original boundaries of quantum manipulation." The director stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in despite her obvious shock. "We mean no intrusion. Our species are merely trying to find a peaceful way to coexist." Peace. The ancient presence seemed to ripple with something akin to amusement. "You dabble in forces that could unravel the fabric of space-time itself, and you speak of peace. The quantum realm is not merely a tool for your civilizations to exploit. It is the foundation of reality itself." The Supreme Chancellor and the director exchanged glances, a moment of unspoken understanding passing between former adversaries. Their political disputes suddenly seemed trivial in the face of this revelation. "Tell me, children of the galaxy," the presence continued, its form shifting through impossible geometries, "now that you have awakened the quantum guardians, what do you intend to do with the knowledge that your entire understanding of reality has been merely the surface of a much deeper truth?" The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications became clear. The conflict between Earth and the Council hadn't just reshaped galactic politics. It had accidentally pulled back the curtain on a universe far more complex and mysterious than any of them had imagined. The Quantum Guardian's presence filled the chamber with an energy that made reality itself seem to bend. The director stepped forward, her voice steady despite the cosmic weight of the moment. We understand that our actions may have seemed reckless, but they were driven by a fundamental desire for freedom and understanding. Isn't that what consciousness itself strives for? A ripple of what could only be described as ancient amusement emanated from the Guardian. Interesting. Most species, when faced with their own cosmic insignificance, resort to fear or aggression. You choose to philosophize. The Supreme Chancellor moved to stand beside the director, their previous animosity forgotten in the face of this greater revelation. Then perhaps that is why our civilizations were allowed to advance this far. You've been watching us all along, haven't you? Watching, waiting, and wondering. The Guardians' thoughts resonated through their minds. Your species were placed in separate regions of space for a reason. Your conflicts, your growth, your discoveries, all were part of a greater experiment. We needed to know if you could transcend your limitations, not just technologically, but ethically. The chamber erupted with murmurs as historical data began flowing through the quantum network, showing how the Guardians had subtly influenced the development of all spacefaring civilizations. Earth's rapid technological advancement hadn't been just human ingenuity. They'd been unconsciously guided toward specific discoveries, just as the Council had been millennia before. But there's more, isn't there? The director's eyes narrowed with sudden insight. You're not just here to reveal the truth. You need something from us. The Guardian's form shifted, condensing into a more comprehensible shape. The quantum realm is dying, it announced. The barriers between realities are weakening. We Guardians have maintained these boundaries for millions of years, but our time is ending. We need successors. Understanding dawned across the faces of both humans and Council members. Their recent conflict, Earth's innovative quantum manipulations, the Council's established order. It had all been a test to identify potential inheritors of the Guardian's legacy. Your combined potential, the Guardian continued, humans with their adaptability and innovative spirit, the Council with their stability and experience, and the hidden civilizations with their patience and wisdom. Together, you could become something greater than we ever were. But just as hope began to rise in the chamber, the Guardian's form flickered ominously. However, you have mere moments to decide. The quantum barriers are collapsing faster than predicted. If you cannot unite now, immediately, all of reality will begin to unravel. The director turned to the Supreme Chancellor, extending her hand. The choice seems clear. Either we overcome our differences instantly, or we cease to exist entirely. The Supreme Chancellor regarded the offered hand, then did something unprecedented in Council history. They removed their ceremonial robe of office. Perhaps it is time for the old order to give way to something new, something better. As their hands clasped, the Guardian began to glow with increasing intensity. The quantum network surged with power, connecting all present minds into a single, unified consciousness. For one brief, eternal moment, every being in the chamber understood every other completely, their fears, hopes, dreams, and regrets. But in that moment of perfect unity, a final, terrible truth revealed itself through the quantum link. The Guardians weren't just looking for successors. They were looking for sacrifices. The realization hit them all simultaneously through the quantum link. Becoming Guardians meant transcending their physical forms entirely. They would have to sacrifice everything they were to become everything they could be. The chamber filled with a blinding light as the ancient Guardian's form began to merge with the unified consciousness of all those present. A sacrifice freely given holds more power than one taken by force. The Guardians' thoughts echoed through their connected minds. That is why we waited until you could choose this fate willingly, with full understanding of what it means. Through their shared consciousness, every being present saw visions of possible futures, realities where their civilizations continued their conflicts until they destroyed themselves, and realities where the quantum realm collapsed, taking all of existence with it. But they also saw the potential of their unity, the power they could wield together to maintain the very fabric of reality itself. The director's consciousness reached out through the link, touching minds with species she had once considered enemies. We fought so hard to maintain our individual identities, our independence. Her thoughts resonated through the connection. But perhaps true freedom lies in choosing to become part of something greater. The Supreme Chancellor's consciousness responded, their thoughts tinged with a bittersweet understanding. For millennia, we sought to impose order through control. Now we understand. True order comes from harmony freely chosen. As their combined consciousness expanded, they began to perceive reality as the Guardians did, not as a single universe, but as an infinite web of interconnected dimensions, all requiring constant maintenance and protection. Their former conflicts seemed impossibly small in the face of this greater purpose. The transformation began. Physical forms dissolved into pure energy as their unified consciousness expanded to fill the quantum network. The chamber, the ships, the defensive platforms, all became mere points of reference in an infinite sea of reality. But they didn't lose themselves entirely. Instead, they became something new, a collective consciousness that maintained the unique perspectives and experiences of all its parts. Earth's innovation, the Council's wisdom, the hidden civilization's patience, all merged into a new form of guardian, more diverse and adaptable than the originals had ever been. The last echo of the ancient guardian's consciousness shared a final message before fading into the collective. You feared losing yourselves, but in choosing to sacrifice everything, you have preserved what matters most, the very essence of who you are. As the new guardians took their place in the quantum realm, their first act was to reach out to all the civilizations they had left behind, not to rule or control, but to share a message of hope and unity. The message spread across the galaxy, translated into every language. We were once like you, divided, fearful, fighting for our place in the cosmos. We chose to become something more, not because we had to, but because we could. The stars remain open to you, the future is yours to shape, and when you're ready to reach beyond the veil of ordinary reality, we will be here, watching, guiding, protecting. For we are no longer human, alien, or council. We are the new guardians, born from the best of all our civilizations, preserving reality itself through our eternal unity. Throughout the galaxy, beings of all species looked up at their skies with new understanding. The quantum barriers had been strengthened, reality secured, and a new era of cooperation had begun. The greatest war that never happened had transformed into the most profound peace that ever was. In the vast quantum realm, the new guardians began their eternal watch, their consciousness spanning realities, their unity forged from ancient conflicts, their sacrifice transforming them into the very thing they once feared, and yet, somehow, remaining exactly who they were meant to be.